Hey, if any of you recognize that music, just know you're an OG in my book. Bra weeb grana weeb ninibong YouTube. It's me, RedWhiteandBluestreak. That's right, I'm alive and well now after dealing with and welcome to the first review of the first edition of what I'd like to call Prime Month. A month where we look exclusively at the numerous plastic primes that decorate my shelf. There is a plan to release one of these every other week when it comes to Prime Month. Don't quote me on that and don't hold me to that. Things get in the way, like, I was planning on doing this at the very beginning of the month, but then I caught and, so that all kind of fell apart. So I'm gonna try to get these out every other week. And normally I want to do this in July because it's my birth month and every number in my birth date is a prime number. And also because Prime is the only character from Transformers that I have a whole shelf dedicated to when it comes to a collection. So, it's kind of something a little clever, but I'm making an exception for this month. And I might do a couple bonus ones in July, I don't know. The main reasons I'm making an exception, though, are one, because we've reached 41 subscribers, which is absolutely insane. I never thought I'd get to that number. Just a few short months ago, I was at 2 subscribers, and one of them was me, as I mentioned in one of the posts I made. So I kind of wanted to do something a little special, so I figured, doing Prime Month a little early this month, or doing Prime Month a little early this year would be a little, nice little treat. And also because next month we're getting a whole live-action film, which we haven't gotten in a while, so it's kind of also a hype builder for that. Plus, inevitably, with Rise of the Beast around the corner, there's going to be a few new primes that release on store shelves, so as those become available, I do want to try to sneak those in as a review or two, possibly during this whole Prime Month thing that I'm doing on my channel. And in hindsight, I could have saved Light of Victory's review for this month, but hindsight's 2020, and we're here now, so let's just move on with that. And I thought that there wouldn't be an option that fit better for the first review of the first edition of Prime Month than the very first Prime I ever got, which technically isn't even an Optimus Prime depending on who you ask. That's right, we're starting with Generation 1 Power Master Optimus Prime, or God Ginrai depending on who you ask. What can I say besides I'm surprised this thing survived 6-year-old me. Or, well, mostly survived. To give a bit of personal history before going into the actual lore for the character here, Ginrai Master Prawnvoy here was my very first Optimus Prime and also my very first Transformer that I ever owned. You see, right after the 1986 feature-length commercial known as Transformers the Movie, I wanted a red and blue truck to call my own. My mom went to the local Toys R Us because it was a nicer, simpler time, and came back with a big box containing this monstrous reissue of a Prime. I will say as a kid, I was a little disappointed by the lack of a matrix chamber, which is all too common on Primes nowadays, as well as the lack of an ability to get this guy into any real dynamic poses like what you see on screen, and I was a little bit disappointed with the not screen accurate transformation, at least when it pertains to that movie's Optimus Prime. The transformation on this guy is actually very screen accurate. But I will say I was absolutely smitten by the very concept of an Optimus Prime that combines with an even smaller guy, and then combines with his trailer to form an even bigger or even awesomer Optimus Prime. And nearly 20 years later, he's still here. Mostly. Now for the actual history of the character. 101 with Red, White, and Bluestreak. Now, forgive me because I'm not exactly the most well-versed in the post-Season 4 G1 era. I saw a few episodes of Victory and Headmasters on a sketchy anime website way back when, and I haven't really seen the rest of the show, so most of the information I'm gathering here is from, quick little internet searches here and there. So if anyone knows where I can watch the rest of the show reliably, please let me know. Maybe it's just flown under my nose or something, and I just never noticed an obvious place where to find it. Either way, I really do want to watch these shows. I just haven't really found a place to watch them. Reliably anyways. But from my understanding anyways, Power Master Optimus Prime actually isn't even a Prime. Or an Optimus for that matter. I'm kicking off Prime Month with a character that isn't even really Optimus Prime. I really am a sham. You see, Ginrai here is what is known as a Transtector, which is essentially a hollow husk in need of a hollow husk, really? Did I really just say that? It's an empty vessel in need of a soul. Now you can probably tell just by the way he looks that this guy was the Transtector meant for legendary Autobot leader Optimus Prime, but the Transtectors were abducted by the Decepticon baddie Devil Z before he could even really get a chance at his 4th shot of life. Though, to be honest, it probably wouldn't have lasted him that long anyways, based on his track record. Eventually, the Transtector fell into the hands of a human named Ginrai, who would later go on to use that Transtector to fight alongside the Autobots, fighting alongside the likes of like Starsaber or people like that. Though eventually, just like anyone else who would dare to have those familiar truck pectorals, he would die. By his own request, funny enough, to later become reborn as Victory Leo, which... that's another story for maybe another time, possibly, maybe, sometime. I don't know. If I ever get a Victory Leo figure, we'll go over it. But until then, putting that story to rest. Going back to the figure, this thing definitely feels like a product of its time. Dense, cold due to the metal that's used in it, and absolutely solid. One might say that this was kind of Hasbro and Takara's golden age here, before all the QC issues and plastic yellowing nightmares of today. I mean, back then, everyone knew exactly what they were getting because it was basic, it was simple, and it was quality. Not to say that the figures of today aren't quality, but this was more consistent. I mean, outdated as the engineering is, you definitely gotta give that to them. The vehicle mode, as mentioned before, just feels solid and is a great representation of Power Master's pimped out big rig. And the low parts count means I don't really have to worry about tabs and panels not fitting together for this, unlike some of the more modern figures we've looked at. It's all friction joints and ratchets here, baby. Which is shown off more in the actual transformation that isn't possible without the help of his little friend here, who in the States is known as High Q, but overseas, well, believe it or not, this is Ginrai. Not to be confused with God Ginrai, which is the big bot, but... Jin Q here is either a human piloting the God Ginrai Transtector or a Nebulon programmer depending on who you ask, and is represented in a fittingly simplistic yet completely accurate form for this toy. Forward rotations at the arms and sideways knee bends are all the posing you're going to get out of this little guy, but the most you'll really need him for is to transform into an engine component and merge with the main body, because the figure literally can't transform all the way without him. There's a neat spring lock gimmick here where you need to push in the grill here to unlock the legs for the transformation, which is actually present on a lot of the figures that were released around the time. They all had this similar gimmick here where a part was locked and you had to push in some sort of spring-loaded part in order for it to transform. Or I mean, you could just push it in with your finger if you're that opposed to a transformer needing help to transform, but newsflash, buddy, it's a toy. It needs help to transform anyways, your help. You pushing in the little spring-loaded gimmick here is just you pulling a Jin Q without having to use the Jin Q figure. Transformation, of course, is unsurprisingly basic, but I do want to point out something with this figure. I like that the wheels on the back of the cab actually become the heels for the robot mode. It's an idea that's so G1 that I feel like we're never going to really see this again on modern figures, at least first-party modern figures, so I'm enjoying it while I can, but it's a shame. I mean, I would love to see how modern toy engineering would approach having the wheels as the heel joints rather than just, you know, having them disappear somewhere. Now with this robot mode, there's once again quite a bit to love. The head sculpt, or half a head sculpt, is very nice, and the eyes are a fantastic shade of blue. The main robot mode front looks good as well. I'll have to admit I'm impressed that most of the stickers here lasted so long with only the slightest hint of peeling away, though the illusion is kind of broken when you look at the back of the figure. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bummer that when you look at the back of the figure the whole cab is just hanging off there, but it's actually cartoon accurate, so all of my complaints are null and void. Articulation definitely ain't anything to write home about, of course, which is why this toy isn't getting an articulation segment. The most you can really get out of this guy is a somewhat dramatic falling to his knees and asking the heavens why his legs are melded together pose, so definitely not bad for his time, considering that most figures back then didn't even have knees. Now, I suppose we should move on to the actual main event. Now this is what it's all about. Everyone, may I present to you God Ginrai Power Master Optimus Prime, or most of him. Now this is what ultimately won me over as a kid. I was able to forgive the lack of resemblance to the 1986 movie I watched because this mode was so freaking awesome. I mean, I found out about this figure before anything regarding RID 2001 or Transformers Armada, so the idea of Optimus Prime combining with his trailer to form an even bigger, awesomer Optimus Prime was completely new to me, and I absolutely was in love with the idea as a kid. I mean, all I could really do was just gaze at this figure in sheer awe, and then immediately yeet him across the room because my enjoyment of a toy was entirely based on how cool it looked flying at a wall. Like I said, I'm surprised this figure survived 6-year-old me. Once again, the posing is pretty much non-existent, but the presentation via the sculpting and limited paintwork are where this guy shines. All the details and the stickers that somehow managed to survive look really nice. You might notice that some parts are missing from this mode if you have a keen eye, and yeah, I think survive is an adequate term for describing this figure's experience with 6-year-old me. You see, originally this figure had several different components to add on to Power Master Optimus, and those components are unfortunately lost. I only really have memories of what the complete mode looked like from when I was a kid, so I can't really base my opinion entirely off of the memories. And I'm not looking to pay that much to recomplete this set. Yet, anyways, maybe later. Tears of the Kingdom is about to come out and I kind of need to get that first. So, what do I rate this thing? Honestly, I don't think I can. I mean, for starters, this figure is incomplete, thanks to yours truly, so I only have some childhood memories of the complete Power Master mode to remember. And of course, like I said earlier, I can't really base my entire opinion of a mode based on what I remember as a kid. And I'm not going to base my opinion based on figures that I've seen of it. That just doesn't feel right. But also, G1 was such a weird proto-mixed bag of things that it kind of feels weird to really critique anything that was coming out back then. I mean, the most I could really do is see how this figure stacks up as a reissue, but I can't even do that because I don't own the original version of the figure. So instead I'll critique this. 5 out of 5, get yourself a Creon Optimus Prime. You need it, trust me, you need it.